Stanford researchers looked at more than 4 million real job applications submitted to around 150 large employers. And they found something in the data that should not be possible. Among people who applied to 10 different jobs, all screened by the same automated hiring tool, 4% were rejected by every single one. 10 separate companies. 10 separate roles. 10 rejections without exception. And the reason that matters is not the size of the number. It is that the number is too high to be chance. If 10 employers were each making their own independent decision, you would expect a certain small share of people to strike out everywhere. The observed rate was statistically higher than that, which tells you the decisions were not independent. So here is what I want to establish. Why applying to more jobs may no longer mean more chances. What the disparities in the data actually are, stated precisely. What almost nobody applying is told. Then the strongest case for these tools, which is better than you would guess. And what the study can and cannot prove. First, the evidence base, because it is unusually good. This is not a survey of opinions. It is more than 4 million actual applications to roughly 150 large employers, most of them Fortune 500 companies. This is the largest study of automated hiring conducted so far. And the practice is close to universal. Around 90% of American employers now use some form of automated screening to sort and rank applicants. But here is the detail that turns this from an annoyance into a structural problem. Most of them buy that screening from the same small handful of third-party vendors, which changes the maths of looking for work in a way almost nobody has been told about. The assumption every job seeker operates on is that applying to more places means more chances, because each employer forms its own view of you. Some hiring manager likes your background, another does not. That is how it worked. But if those employers have all licensed the same screening model, you do not get 10 assessments. You get one assessment applied 10 times. Put a number on it. You apply to 10 roles. You believe you are buying 10 assessments with that effort. If those 10 employers license the same screening model, and around 9 in 10 American employers now screen this way, you are buying one assessment delivered 10 times at 10 companies on 10 different days. The effort scales. The evaluation does not. That is the finding underneath the 4%. A rejection stopped being an event and became a property. If the model reads something in your application it does not favor, the labor market does not offer you a second opinion. It offers you the same opinion at scale quietly in a fraction of a second over and over. Now the part that made headlines, and I want to state it precisely rather than loudly. The researchers found clear racial disparities in how these systems advanced candidates. 26% of black applicants and 15% of Asian applicants applied to positions where the system disadvantaged their group. And the researchers calculated that if those candidates had advanced at the same rate as the most favored group, roughly 40,000 more people would have moved to the next stage of hiring. And I want to be careful here because this is where coverage of this study went wrong in both directions. This is a measurement of outcomes. It is not a finding that anyone built a racist system on purpose. Disparate outcome and discriminatory intent are different claims, and only one of them is in this data. But a disparity does not need intent to end someone's application. The person who did not get the interview experiences the same thing either way. Then there is what applicants are actually told, which is very close to nothing. In a survey of over 1,000 candidates, half received a rejection with no human feedback of any kind. More than 2/3 were never informed that an automated system was involved. Fewer than 1 in 10 were clearly told a machine was evaluating them. Put those together and roughly 85% of applicants have no reliable idea whether a person ever read their application, which produces a genuinely strange asymmetry. The employer knows exactly how the decision was made. The applicant is not told a decision was made by a machine, is not told what it weighed, and cannot appeal it because from the outside a machine rejection and a human rejection look identical. They are the same silence. Now the other side, and it is stronger than the comments will allow. Start with the volume problem. A large employer can receive hundreds of thousands of applications a year. There is no version of that where every application gets read carefully by a person, because that person does not exist and never did. Before automation, the filter was not careful human attention. It was a recruiter skimming for 6 seconds, or a referral from somebody who already worked there. And that last point is the strongest thing you can say for these tools. Referral-based hiring is a bias machine. It systematically favors people who already know somebody inside, which tracks existing wealth and existing networks almost perfectly. An algorithm at least produces a measurable disparity. You cannot audit a hiring manager's instinct, and for a century nobody could. The vendors make a related argument, and part of it holds. That measured disparity is exactly what allows the problem to be found and fixed, which is what happened here. That the study measures outcomes across employers, not the behavior of any one product in isolation. And that a system flagged as disadvantaging a group can be retrained, whereas a biased workforce cannot be recalled. All of that is fair. None of it helps the 40,000 people who did not advance. And here are the limits of the study itself, which you should know before you quote it at anybody. It shows correlation between applicant group and advancement rate. It does not open the model and show you the mechanism. Employers configure these tools differently, so some of the variation is the customer, not the vendor. And a single study, however large, is one study. And it is worth asking how the market ended up this shape, because nobody designed it. Screening software has the economics of software generally. It costs an enormous amount to build the first copy and almost nothing to sell the 10,000th. Markets like that do not stay fragmented. They consolidate every time in every industry where this has happened, which means the concentration is not a scandal. It is the default outcome, and it arrived without anyone deciding that a handful of models should sort the American workforce. So what would actually change it? Not banning the tools. That is not going to happen, and it would hand hiring back to referrals, which is worse. Disclosure that a machine screened you, which most candidates are currently never told. Audits published by somebody other than the vendor, because a company grading its own fairness is not an audit. And genuine diversity between models, so that a rejection at one employer stops predicting a rejection at the next. Only that last one touches the 4%. So here is what I think this actually is. Not a story about a racist robot. It is a story about concentration. For most of history, the labor market's saving grace was that it was made of thousands of separate, inconsistent, individually flawed judgments. That inconsistency was inefficient, and it was also the thing that gave people a second chance. Replace it with one efficient judgment licensed to everybody, and you have not removed the bias. You have removed the disagreement. So where do you land? Is the real problem the bias in these models, which is measurable and therefore fixable, and arguably better than the unauditable human process it replaced? Or is the real problem the concentration, where the fairness of one vendor's model quietly becomes the fairness of the entire job market? Tell me which, and tell me what would change your mind. And if you have applied for a job this year, you have almost certainly been scored by one of these. Everything here is sourced in the description.